This show is brought to you by our partners talkSPORT Bet. New customers get an exclusive offer of £40 in free bets when you bet £10. Go to talksportbet.com/InsideGooners to claim this offer now.
I don't really care about the reaction, to be honest. It's all about the win.
A little bit disappointed with the first half display. The more I went over it and analysed it, the more I thought it was a tactical issue.
Where are you on him and what do you do with him?
In modern football, I don't think you need to be the sort of that sort of captain.
Martin Odegaard's not an issue. You shouldn't be considering stripping him of the captaincy.
You can't see Odegaard and Gyokeres not clicking.
So I certainly think it's harsh, way over the top.
I think the criticism is harsh because he's only played an hour of Premier League football. That's the reality of the situation.
Sporting didn't play against teams that played a high line every week, did they?
No, absolutely.
He will score goals for Arsenal.
This is no disrespect to Leeds, but this is one game you're looking at going, I think I can get off the mark here. And it's about just building relationships. That doesn't come overnight.
Trossard sounds to me like the one that could still potentially go, and it could open the door for a late window signing. It's a win now mentality, and Mikel Arteta will know that if he doesn't get that job done, then there will be more pressure on him this season.
Hello and welcome to Inside Gooners, sponsored by talkSPORT Bet, our dedicated show about all things Arsenal, and what better way to kick off the new season than with a win at Old Trafford. And over the next 45 minutes, we're going to get stuck into all the post-match reaction, and we'll be checking in with Ben Jacobs to see if we should expect any more arrivals at the Emirates. And finally, we'll be looking ahead to Saturday's 5:30 game against Leeds United, which we cannot wait for. And joining me today is Adrian Clarke and Harry Symeou. Gentlemen, how are we both?
Good, yeah, all good. Yeah, look, 3 points in the bag. Yeah, up and running.
Listen, we know it was a hard-fought game, of course, beating up Manchester United 1-0. Calafiori header, I think it was in the 13th minute. A lot's been made of the performance of Arsenal, but I'm firmly in the camp of I'd have rather gone to Manchester United, play the way we did and won, rather than playing as well as we know we can do and only getting a point. I mean, what have you made of the reaction?
I don't really care about the reaction, to be honest. It's all about the win. It's a tough away game. Arsenal got a really difficult start to the season, and ultimately the performance doesn't really matter too much. It wasn't a good performance. I think it was way below par. It was probably one of Arsenal's worst away performances over the last 2 or 3 seasons, but we got the job done, and ultimately that's all that matters. I think the 3 points will give the team confidence, and I kind of think it was a one-off in terms of how clunky Arsenal were. Manchester United played great. They really sort of unsettled us, and we were unusually, I don't know what the word is, just unusually lacking in sharpness, mentally and physically. So I think we'll be better for the run, as they say.
What did you think, Harry? Because I thought the reactions have been a bit over the top.
Yeah, but it always is with Arsenal, isn't it? Like, how do you generate clicks? How do you generate kind of that conversation and that debate? We're always on the receiving end of that. But just from being at Old Trafford at the weekend, I think people underestimated what a tough game that was going to be. There's a bit of a buzz around Man United at the moment. It's Amarim's first new season, some big signings. I've been to Old Trafford many, many times. That's probably as good an atmosphere as I've experienced there. So they were right up for it, and they were quick and they were sharp out of the traps and they were winning duels and they were causing us all sorts of problems from a physical standpoint as well, which probably wasn't something I expected going into the game. I thought we'd dominate in that sense, and we didn't. So bit of a wake-up call for us, lots to take away from it, lots to improve on, but ultimately we got the result. And when you look at the fixtures we've got coming up, the likes of Liverpool, Man City, Newcastle, all on the horizon, I think it was really important, given our rivals won, even at this stage in the season, that we picked up 3 points, and we did. So we take it and we move on.
Do you know, I almost think it was a positive, and we've seen Arsenal play so much better than that and not get results, especially at Old Trafford, where it has been a bit of a tough place for Arsenal to go. So for me, the big positive is that Arsenal were way below par, and I mean way below par, and still managed to keep a clean sheet and still managed to take away 3 points because, listen, Arsenal are going to get better. That's just fact. A number of new players in there. Zubimendi obviously making his debut. Gyokeres, of course, which we'll get to in a little bit. I just think the reaction, when you start picking it apart, you have to be happy with the performance and the result.
Isn't it better sometimes to win playing badly because you get the points, but you learn stuff?
Of course.
Sometimes when you win a game and it's easy and you win at a canter, you're not really learning too much about the team. And I think in this game we could see the flaws. Obviously on the transitions we didn't make the most of those at all. We were caught out positionally. Our fullbacks were taking some risks. I mean, I like to see them take risks, but sometimes I also like to see teammates react by covering them, them. But Man United cheated, didn't they? I mean, the wingers, and Burma just stood out on the wing. Dorgu did the same on the other side on some occasions, and we kind of fell into that trap. So again, that's happened now. We got away with it, and hopefully moving forwards, we'll think twice about sending Ben White into the centre circle to look for a 1-2 with Saka when he knows that Dorgu's out on the left-hand side. So yeah, it's a big learning experience.
Yeah, we were kind of geared to deal with Man United through the middle of the pitch, and they went out wide, and we didn't really know initially how to react to that, I didn't think. And, you know, you mentioned sort of committing the fullbacks forward too soon and things like that. I felt like we kept trying to commit bodies forward and be aggressive before we had a good quality of possession.
Yeah.
So before you've got the ball under control, you're sending bodies forward, and then the likelihood of that move, that breaking down is quite high, and you end up on the back foot and running back towards your own goal. No one wants that away at Old Trafford.
No. What did you make of the team selection? Because was there any players that you thought that would have started? Because looking at the team, I thought, okay, I looked at the Ben White Timber one, that was one. The Lewis Skelly Calafiori, although Calafiori I thought was fantastic. Did you think he got the team selection right?
Well, I picked the same teams before, so yeah. But the reason I went with that team was that I thought that White had a better pre-season than Timber. He'd played more games, hadn't he? And Timber wasn't quite ready. And I thought that I actually think White struggled in the game. I think Cunha sort of, roasted him a couple of times. He was caught out of position a little bit. I think Timber will be in the frame to start against Leeds United this weekend. The reason I would have gone for Calafiori was height in both boxes, and also I like his buccaneering spirit, and I do think that he made a bit more of an impact. Do you think over pre-season than Lewis Skelly, who did okay?
Yeah,
he wasn't quite as good as he can be.
Yeah, and I think on that left-hand side in particular, which is where we're all looking at to try and find the kind of winning and golden combination.
Of course.
I think actually Calafiori and Martinelli works quite well, because you've got a left winger who is probably more defensively aware than any of the other options we have. And you've got a left back that is a free spirit and is going to run around wherever he wants to. I do worry about Calafiori sometimes in away games from a defensive standpoint, because he does leave us a bit vulnerable. He does leave us a bit exposed. When he steps into midfield, you almost end up with a back three. And then your back three, if you're playing a team with width like Manchester United had, ends up being pulled apart, and then there's spaces in between each man. So that was where I think Man United had us a little bit in the first half. But Calafiori creates so much.
He's fun,
because
isn't
he's chaos.
He is fun to watch. I didn't expect it, because I thought we were signing a centre-half that was a really good centre-half that could play at left-back. But he's so much more entertaining than I expected. Love him.
I do think maybe Lewis Skelly is more comfortable because he's naturally a centre midfield player. You know, when he goes into that inverted fullback role, I think Lewis Skelly's probably a little bit more comfortable on the ball. But saying that, I like the fact that the squad looks thicker. I think that the bench looked really, really strong. But when you go back to the starting 11, a lot's been made of Zubimendi. Now, I really like him. I think he will get better. The Premier League is not like any other league in the world. And he found that out pretty much straight away in terms of the tempo of the game, the speed of the game. What did you make of his debut?
I looked at him in the first half, and I was a little bit disappointed with the first half display.
I don't think anyone played well in the first half.
I thought he got better after half-time, as did everyone else. But the more I went over it and analysed it, the more I thought it was a tactical issue more than it being about Zubimendi. I thought him and Rice were completely bypassed. We couldn't play through them because Man United were quite aggressive when we were trying to play through the lines in that particular area of the pitch. But also, they didn't really give us control out of possession because Man United were hitting the wide areas.
Yeah.
So it just felt to me like the game didn't suit them. It didn't work for either of those two players. There was a couple of clever touches from Zubimendi, a couple of good bits of covering. He covered an incredible amount of distance when you look at the numbers. So I wouldn't say it was a bad performance, but I do think he struggled as well as Declan Rice as well. We've got to say it, to be fair. They both struggled.
I think there were 4 or 5 players that were worse than Zubimendi. I think Zubimendi actually was fine.
Yeah.
It didn't help that Declan Rice was really off colour to his left. So that was difficult. I thought he was certainly the better of the two. I like the way he broke up play. I like the way he just pops those early passes into Odegaard. Obviously, Odegaard's on the transition, some of them were made by himself, but often it was Zubi just playing a little short ball and he's away. So he'll be absolutely fine. I've got no worries about Zubimendi. The forward line just didn't function. But then you've got to look, I guess, at the service that they got, and that wasn't too hot either, was it?
No. There was a moment in the first half where I thought Zubimendi really showed his intelligence. It didn't come to anything, but there was a ball that we put in the box, and Man United sort of half cleared it. and it comes to the edge of the United penalty area. And rather than laying it off to someone, Zubimendi just backheels it back into the area, and it almost went through for Saka. Okay. I think it was Dorgu on the cover, but it just showed that he was just really switched on and has that ability with just a touch to create something. So he's always
He'll
worth
be
having
fine.
on the side.
He'll
Yeah.
be fine.
I think the combination between Zubimendi, Rice and Odegaard, I think eventually will, as we saw with Partey, Rice and Odegaard eventually will come good. Martin Odegaard, where do you stand in these performances at the minute? Now, we know he had the big ankle injury last season. He never recovered from that. He never looked the same player. Pre-season, I don't think he looked as sharp as we've seen him before. Against Manchester United, although he was better, he still wasn't at the level I believe we know Martin Odegaard could get to. We know he's had a lot of criticism about the armband from Tony Adams, which I don't think is fair. It's hard coming from such an iconic Arsenal player. So when it comes from someone like him, it carries weight. Where are you on him and what do you do with him?
Well, it would have hurt him, wouldn't it, that
Of
Tony said that. I did disagree with Tony, love him, but I just think that Declan Rice doesn't need the armband to be a leader in the team, and I think that the whole dressing room really respects Odegaard.
Yeah. And sorry to interrupt you, do you think also as well from Tony, like an added question, it shines a light on Martin that doesn't quite need to be there?
Yeah, I don't know why he did it, but he's on stage, he's under pressure to come up with interesting things, talking points, and that's his opinion. He thinks Declan Rice. I think in the 90s or the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, Declan Rice would be absolutely your go-to captain. But in the modern football, I don't think you need to be the sort of that sort of captain. I think that Martin Odegaard does a perfectly good job. I thought he looked quite sharp in pre-season. He's looking to have more shots. He looks a bit fitter. He looks a bit faster. And in this game, it was a mixed bag, wasn't it? I think, is that fair? I think he did a lot of good stuff. Travelling with the ball at speed, taking it upfield. He won the ball back more than any Arsenal player. His work rate was brilliant, as it always is. He was in the game. He was heavily involved. It was just taking the extra touch, just not playing the right pass at the right time. I'd pin in some of it on the runs.
Yeah.
I think Martinelli didn't make very intelligent runs.
Yeah, lack of the movement.
Yeah. Like there was one instance where Odegaard's got it, he's got Saka to his right, Martinelli to his left. Martinelli makes a run kind of into his space.
Yeah.
It's so tight. He's got to pull off there, split those United defenders. But I thought it was a mixed bag. He's got to make better decisions at the end of those dribbles. But we've seen that he can, haven't we? I mean, he's easily good enough.
Yeah.
He was a one-man midfield for a lot of that game. I mentioned that I felt the other two were completely out of the game in the first half. He was winning the ball back, as you mentioned. He was the one that was carrying it through the lines. He was the one that was driving forward, trying to make something happen. I thought the stick that he got on Sunday from some sections was completely unfair. Did everything come off? No, it didn't. But if you're playing in that position where you're tasked with playing the killer ball or making that contribution in the final third, you're not going to get everything right.
He was a top three performer on the day. Raya was probably the player of the match. I think Calafiori was really good. And probably you're then looking at Odegaard as the next most impactful player. So he shouldn't have got any stick. I didn't even know he got a stick.
Yeah, he got a fair bit of stick on that. And on the Tony Adams thing, like, I don't think what Tony Adams said, Declan Rice should be the captain, is an outrageous opinion. No. But it just, like, Martin Odegaard's not an issue. You shouldn't be considering stripping him of the captaincy. If we were to go from a blank slate and you said, who's the Arsenal captain, then maybe you pick Rice, maybe you pick Gabriel, right? Because they're more traditional type captains. But this idea that Odegaard's a problem, and I thought as Arsenal fans, we had a responsibility to not make too big of a deal of that. Yeah. And I think it became a much bigger thing than it needed to be. It's his opinion. He's entitled to it. Some agree, some disagree. That's it. But Odegaard played on Sunday like that got to him, I thought.
Do you know what as well? I think with Odegaard, for me, it's, and you said it there, Adrian, it's that final third where I think there's too much flicking, too much of these passes that if they come off, they're world class. But at the minute for him, and you players, you go through these phases where right now it's not happening. Those little clips over the top, and you just want to see him pull the trigger because he's got that kind of technique to be able to execute it. So the fact that he is now getting back to the level that we know he was at 2 seasons ago, that can only be a positive, right?
Yeah, I just want him to play it earlier. He can travel with the ball, but he's not the world's greatest dribbler at speed. I just think sometimes the early pass, that Elliot Anderson pass at the weekend.
Oh, wow.
What a pass. Like
Yeah.
one of the passes of the season so far. You know, it'd be hard pushed to beat that in a way. But that's the kind of pass Odegaard can make. And that's why I think him and Gyokeres will click eventually. I think Martin and the other guys have got to just realise they've now got a guy that's already on the move. You don't have to wait for their run. He's already moving.
Yeah.
You'll know this as a striker. He runs earlier than most strikers. He's always moving. And I think we can just afford to slip it in behind. And I don't know, I just can't see it failing. I know it didn't work at the weekend, but I think over the long haul, I can't see Odegaard and Gyokeres not clicking.
Do you think it's a case? Sorry, do you think it's a case of now, because we will speak about Gyokeres, he's so used to, Havertz has been superb for Arsenal, right? But he's a back-to-goal centre forward. He comes off lovely little touches. He can spin in behind, but his first option is always to come to feet, hold the ball, Saka and Martinelli run. Now, as you said there, you've got Victor Gyokeres now that as soon as there's any kind of possession in midfield, he's on the shoulder, he's spinning in behind. That relationship with Odegaard will take time because they're not used to playing that way. What did you make of Gyokeres' performance? And do you think the criticism that he got, because I certainly think it was harsh, has been, again, way over the top?
Yeah. He made a lot of the right runs. He doesn't look 100% fit to me, which is understandable. He's a bit behind everyone else in terms of his pre-season preparations because he was waiting for the move to go through and all the rest of it. I think the criticism is harsh because he's only played an hour of Premier League football. Like, that's the reality of the situation, right? But I think you could see on Sunday that Arsenal were trying to play in a way that accommodated Victor Gyokeres. It didn't quite come off, but we were talking earlier about players jumping out of position before we've got good quality of possession. That's because we were trying to play a more transitional game. Now, you're not always going to be able to play that. At home against Leeds, I don't think you're going to play that way. You're going to face something totally different, for instance. But I think there are adjustments ongoing to try and get the best out of Gyokeres, and I think eventually it will click. But people writing him off after 60 minutes.
That's crazy, isn't it?
I mean,
He didn't get a sniff, did he?
I saw someone on Sky Sports yesterday saying that he's a flat track bully. What's that based on? 60 minutes of football.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It was the
honestly.
first league game he'd not had a shot at since he played for Coventry.
Yeah.
So you're going back 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So it's a really unusual situation. I felt sorry for him. He didn't get any service. What can you do?
You said it there about every game's going to be different, and Leeds you'd expect to sit in and try and defend. So then what do you do then? Because if that's the case, then potentially the game suits Havertz more in terms of the way that he plays. But then by taking Gyokeres out after 60 minutes, you're then appeasing to everyone else by saying, well, he wasn't good enough, so I'm taking him out. So what do? Play with him again? Go with him again?
Yeah, but it's different types of runs. There'll still be transitional moments, but if they've got a lower block, which they almost certainly will, it's about the shorter runs, isn't it? It's those little 5-yard runs down the side of a centre half. You make the first run for the defender, the second one to go in behind. It's about having sharp combination play so that you pull defenders out of position. I think with Gyokeres, what he will do that Havertz struggles to do sometimes is pull markers out of position. I think he will take them away, and that will either take them away for space, create space for others, or he'll find little bits of space. He'll be fine. Sporting didn't play against teams that played a high line every week, did they?
No, absolutely.
He still found a way. And I spent last week, didn't take me a week, but almost, watching every single goal that he scored for Sporting. Okay, he scores a load of goals from crosses. He's not just a run through and score merchant. He will be there in the box with headers or lashing home cutbacks. He will score goals for us, I've got no doubt, against all types.
The key there is what you just said about taking markers away and occupying people is just as important. Because now if we get to the byline, if Saka and Martinelli get to the byline, you've got someone that's going to be in the 6-yard box. That creates space on the penalty spot. If he goes near post, he's going to take someone with him. If he's at the far post, he's occupying someone. And we've just not had that before. So that's where your runners from midfield need to be a little bit more sharp and aware of what's happening. I think he's going to work out fine, honestly. This idea that we've signed a dud after 60 minutes of Premier League football, it's just pure clickbait nonsense.
Well, it's about relationships, right? Just quickly, it's about just building relationships, and that doesn't come overnight. You have to, that rapport with Odegaard, with Saka, with Martinelli, and certainly the way that he pulls into space, as you just alluded to there, the intelligence of Martinelli or Saka has got to be, if he does do that, they've got to be the ones running in behind, and that will help him.
Yeah, they're going to get used to each other. Simple as that. And every training session is going to build that chemistry further, isn't it? I think in a week's time, when Leeds rock up at Emirates Stadium, they'll have had, what, five training sessions, maybe 6. They'll be much sharper.
Absolutely. All right, well, listen, we can't forget that the transfer window is still active and Arsenal have already had a very busy window. But what can we expect? Any more arrivals at the Emirates? To get all the answers we need, I'm delighted to welcome to the transfer expert, Mr. Ben Jacobs. Ben, how you doing?
Hey guys, I'm good. How are you?
Hey, mate.
Yeah, we're really, really good, thank you. We're obviously hoping for a little bit of good news. So what can you tell me? Of course, Arsenal, we saw get off to a winning start at Manchester United, but could they expect any more transfers coming in and hopefully one from South London, hopefully plays for Crystal Palace? Is there a chance of that happening?
I don't think, Eze. My understanding is that Tottenham are leading that race and are actually the only suitor at the table. And one of the reasons is because Arsenal don't really want a number 10 now, and that's how they classify Eze. And this is also because Ethan Nwaneri is going to get some minutes through the centre. So if they do bring in a new signing, it'll be a left winger. And even though Eze can play out wide, I think they want a specialist left winger, and they don't think that that's Eze's primary or best position. As a consequence, Arsenal may be a little bit quiet in the market because it will depend on outgoings. Leandro Trossard sounds to me like the one that could still potentially go, not definite, but the most likely of all of Arsenal's attackers to maybe depart between now and the end of the window. And if they get that asking price for Trossard, which is pretty much the money that they paid, a fee in the region of 27 million, it could open the door for a late window signing. But I don't think that name will be Eberechi Eze now. My understanding is that he's off to Spurs.
Ben, have you got any indication of who the name might be then, if indeed Arsenal are still looking and still in the market? Because we started the summer with so many names, Rodrigo, Gordon, we've heard Rafael Leao, Eze, and one by one, it feels like they've kind of fallen away in terms of how likely they are. Is there anyone that you believe Arsenal are still looking at and very much have on their radar?
Yeah, I think some of those names that you mentioned have had concrete interest. Rodrigo, we know they love, but a very expensive deal. So barring anything dramatic, I think he's either going to stay at Real Madrid or suitors are going to have to come late in the window and essentially say this price that Real Madrid have set of between 90 and 100 million euros needs to drop significantly. And by significantly, I mean somewhere between 60 and 70 million euros, or Real become open to a loan. But the challenge with Rodrigo, and Arsenal have never really advanced things, at least up until this point, is the player. And despite the fact he's playing on the right-hand side for Real Madrid, he's not desperate to leave. And he's told Xabi Alonso that he'll stay and fight for his place, whether on the right or maybe some limited opportunities on the left. But of course, Kylian Mbappe and Vinny Jr. are both there. So add all of that up and you've got a slightly strange scenario where Real Madrid would sell Rodrigo, but the player himself is the roadblock at the moment. And because the cost of the deal, including wages and agent fees, Arsenal haven't moved there. Anthony Gordon is definitely a player they like. I think the feeling in the industry is Newcastle are going to shut the door this late in the window. Malik Fofana could be another one to watch as well. Still hasn't gone anywhere. Everton tried. They were quite close to agreeing a fee with Lyon, and yet the player wants to play Champions League football. So I think if a young left winger is available towards the end of the market and they can essentially get rid of Leandro Trossard, who's at the older end in terms of the squad age, and bring in a young star for the future that can compete with Gabriel Martinelli and Noni Madueke now and maybe replace them as a starter in the future, that kind of profile could be of appeal, but it all depends on an exit first.
I still want Eze. After all of that, I still think Arsenal should just get him and play him on the left. I've got reservations. If Rodrigo isn't sure, I want players that are hungry to come to Arsenal. What about sales, Ben? I mean, Arsenal, the record sale at Arsenal is still pitifully low. What is going on here? Why can't Arsenal sell players? Obviously, there's a number of players. You mentioned Trossard that might go. There's a number of players that really on the edge of this team that aren't going to get a look in, like a Reece Nelson, a Zinchenko. What chance of them raising some cash for Arsenal this summer?
Yeah, I think they'll bring in some cash with outgoings, and that is the first priority. So Leandro Trossard, like I said, 27 million or something in that ballpark. I know that Dortmund tried around 25, total package though, and that wasn't good enough. And then in addition to that, Brentford, prior to Dango Ouattara, had made an inquiry as well and were also put off by the asking price. So I think Arsenal have been quite firm in the market with their valuation and are not prepared to drop. And as a consequence, a lot of clubs have walked away. So that's kind of one reason why we haven't yet seen a flurry of outgoings. The other aspect to this is some players that clubs would like and are prepared to pay the market valuation or above are ones that in an ideal world, Arsenal still don't think are done at the football club. And Jakub Kiwior is a good example of that. Porto are the club trying at the moment, but Arsenal wouldn't mind it if the window shuts and he remains a valuable squad player. And I think that when you build the kind of culture that Arsenal have done, and you have a lot of young renewals, and it's been a project that's built slowly, and Mikel Arteta and Edu, when he was still there, were kind of very close to the players, even the ones on the periphery still kind of are reluctant at times to depart because they either have had opportunities or they back themselves to fight and get into the side. So it's sort of a backhanded compliment in many ways that a lot of these players are perfectly happy in London. They like Arsenal and the culture. They're well paid and therefore they don't all want to get out the door. Fabio Vieira is another one that could go in the next 2 weeks or so. Stuttgart are trying to get that asking price lower. I think it will drop between now and the end of the window, and that one might happen. Keep an eye on West Ham United as well, because they've made an inquiry about Fabio Vieira in recent weeks. And then you've got Fulham and Reece Nelson. They're still there, talking on the player side and to Arsenal. But again, familiar pattern. I sound like a broken record here. Arsenal's valuation is a little bit too high. And I think Albert Sambi Lokonga will go as well between now and the end of the window.
Ben, I'm going to use Ben Doak as an example right here. He's just been sold by Liverpool. £25 million. A good player. I saw him in the Championship last year, but he's barely played any first-team football. How did Liverpool get 25 million for him, and Arsenal can only get 27 for Trossard? They can't raise that kind of money for Vieira, for a Reece Nelson, much more experience. I don't understand why clubs won't pay Arsenal the kind of fee that they're willing to pay other clubs. Dango Ouattara, 42 million. I mean, what's going on?
Yeah, some of it is down to age and contract length. So it's really easy to sort of compare two like-for-like players, but you have to obviously think about, is there a desire for them to stay or go? And if the club would rather keep hold of them, the price is higher. How old are they? And how long is left on the contract? So I don't think you can really compare Trossard and Ben Doak, because the latter is obviously younger and seen as having elite potential. And that deal was ultimately a little bit higher than Liverpool were originally asking for, 20 million at the beginning of the window. It went up to 25, and they've committed to a buyback. So when a club like Liverpool engage and have a good relationship with Bournemouth, and they know that they've always got the ability in the future to bring the player back with a buyback, you've got a starting point, and you can kind of look at it in that negotiation as almost Liverpool have probably got the better end of the fee, and Bournemouth have probably got the better end of the buyback. So if Liverpool want him back, they might be overpaying a little bit, but they bring in a really healthy fee to begin with. So then you've got a lot more to cling to in the negotiation. Whereas with some of these Arsenal outgoings, they're either a little bit too old, they've got a little bit too little left on their contract, or alternatively, like I said before, the player's just turning around and saying, actually, I'd be quite happy if the window shuts and I'm still an Arsenal player. And this, I think, is an inherited Andrea Berta problem, because none of these players, when they came in, had contracts negotiated by him. So over the course, I think, of the next 3 to 5 windows, you'll see a change of approach with Arsenal outgoings. And I do think they'll start to get bigger fees and more players out the door. And that, I'm told, is high priority for Andrea Berta to change the way this method of outgoings works. So this is kind of an inherited problem, but I do think that it is one Berta will be able to fix over time.
Ben, there are reports out there as well claiming that Arsenal are potentially in for Frankie de Jong.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about this one, because the player said very openly at the end of July that he plans to extend at Barcelona. Manchester United fans would be well aware that there was a whole summer where they thought they were getting the player, and guess what? He stayed at Barcelona. And I think the expectation from the player is he's not open to offers, especially this late in the window. So I'm not so sure that that one's got legs. And actually, I think once the window shuts, de Jong will end up signing a new deal at Barcelona.
And also, Ben, we know that Mikel Arteta has spent a lot of money. Is there any pressure from the board potentially that it's now time to deliver the major titles?
Yeah, I think so. There's a shift, and the pressure's almost on Berta in many ways, but with an extension of the market that Arsenal have had this summer, it bleeds, as you would expect, into the football department. And the project for Arteta when he joined was building now for the future, bringing new players through, ultimately extending them, keeping continuity within the squad, not having a massive amount of upheaval. And over the course of kind of 3-4 seasons, it was a slow burner where Mikel Arteta was given a lot of slack. But Berta's job description is win now, not build now. And that is why in July in particular, he went out in the market and effectively got a whole new spine of a team. And it's very easy to look at Arsenal's window now and say, well, why is it so quiet? It's largely because perhaps bar a left winger, they've got a lot of the business done. Kepa was once the world's most expensive goalkeeper, so I don't think anybody can really complain about landing him as a backup to Rare at 5 million. Mosquera is the one people are going to be surprised by, because I'm told that Arsenal think he's ready for regular Premier League minutes this season, even though on paper it appears like it's going to be difficult for him to break into the squad. But remember when William Saliba came back from his loan spell, people said originally, how's he going to play? And there was speculation that he might return from that loan in France and leave immediately. He didn't. He went straight into the starting 11. I think by about Christmas, people will start to realise what a player Mosquera is. And then obviously you've got Norgard and Zubimendi and Victor Gyokeres and Noni Madueke. So Andrea Berta has shown that he's prepared to do deals decisively. And in doing so, it's a win now mentality. And Mikel Arteta will know that if he doesn't get that job done, then there will be more pressure on him this season than probably in previous seasons gone by, because the description of Arsenal's project is now not about going slow and building foundations and giving everyone time. There is an expectation that a Premier League title and or silverware needs to start coming right now.
Absolutely. Ben, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Happy with what he said there? Happy with what he said about in terms of ingoings, outgoings?
Well, look, he always speaks great, doesn't he, Ben? He's got his finger on the pulse. Look, yeah, the left winger situation feels a little bit disappointing, even though it's been a really good window for Arsenal, a really strong one. I feel it's a position that does need strengthening. I think that's the one clear position that Arsenal can upgrade.
Of course.
And yeah, it feels like we're running out of options. It's like I still believe that Eze could do a very, very good job out there, but probably with Calafiori being the fullback behind him rather than Miles Lewis-Skelly, because if you've got Miles and Eze on that side, you can see they all want to be on the inside. So I don't know whether the balance works. So they'll have looked at it. Yeah, I just hope Arsenal have got something up their sleeve. But time's ticking.
You know what? He said something, Ben Jacobs, there about Mosquera, who is very good. And he talked about by Christmas time, potentially. I just can't. That's the problem. Like, he said it there. And as he was saying it, like, I get it. Mosquera is supposed to be frightening in terms of how good he can be. I just don't see, unless you change the shape, I don't see how he outs one of those two, Saliba or Gabriel. I just can't see it.
Yeah, I think the idea is to give those guys a breather when they need it. I hope that we've learnt our lesson from last season, because it wasn't a coincidence that so many players that have played so many minutes ended up popping their hamstrings. Like, it wasn't a coincidence. It was more than that. I know that Mikel had his hands tied at points last season due to availability, but you've got to protect some of those players a little bit better. And I think that Mosquera plays into that. It's interesting because if you read some of the reports and if you look at maybe the way the bench was Kivior on the bench at the weekend, or was he left out?
No, he wasn't on the bench.
I'm pretty sure he was left out and Mosquera was on. Now, I don't know if there's anything to that, but the fact that we seem to be open to letting Kivior go and Mosquera's there and in the squad and sort of ready, it kind of says that maybe Arsenal do look at Mosquera and think, you're the third in line now, whereas people might have argued previously that it would have been Kivior based on his performances last season.
Yeah, I thought Kivior at times last season was outstanding. Well, we know what's coming next, of course, after beating Manchester United in that opening Premier League game of the season away from home. Really good performance. Well, the result was fantastic. Leeds United coming up now at home, first home game of the season. Got off to a winning start last night, didn't they, against Everton? I thought they played really well, although I'm not quite sure how good Leeds were and how bad Everton were. But what are you expecting, Adrian, then, from this first game?
Well, a different Leeds, because I think they were at home, weren't they? And they were always going to press high,
of course,
be super aggressive. And they really pinned Everton in, didn't they? It was a really hostile performance. Are they really going to do that to Arsenal at Emirates Stadium? I don't think so, not high up the pitch. I do think their central midfield is strong. Got some really good players in there. With Ampadu and Tanaka and the new guy Statch, who played ever so well against Everton. So that midfield unit is solid. No, they'll be competitive in the game, but Arsenal, it's obviously a game that Arsenal have got to target 3 points. I looked at weaknesses really with Leeds. It's difficult to tell because they're making a step up and they blew the Championship away. But they've Daniel Farke teams aren't good at defending set pieces normally. They concede a lot of chances, a lot of goals from set pieces. And I looked at Everton's chances in that game. 6 of their 7 attempts came from dead balls, which I think bodes nicely potentially for set piece FC.
And I think, I think as well, for as you say, set piece FC, you look at the performance at Old Trafford and it wasn't great. Okay, we took the result and we've all said that we can learn from that and there's things that we can improve on. We've got the 3 points on the board. That's what matters. But ultimately, you want this game next, don't you? You want to play a promoted side at home. You want Victor Gyokeres to get on the score sheet. You want there to be a bit more cohesion and excitement about the way you play. And you hope that that will be a catalyst for what's to come. So in terms of what to expect from Leeds, they're a bit of an unknown as far as I'm concerned because they're not going to play the same way they did in the Championship. And, you know, again, as you said, Darren, it's difficult to know whether they were that good on Monday night or if Everton were really poor. So I think for me, I'm just looking at it and saying this is the right kind of fixture now. It's a fixture that should allow us to get our game going again, get ourselves clicking again and hopefully push on.
We said that about it being, this would be our kind of game where we play the way that we want to play. And with that being said then, do you expect to see many changes? Is there a certain way you want to see Arsenal play? Will Wanjeri come off the bench? Will he get more minutes? Will Lewis Skelly play? I mean, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I could see Timber coming in for White. I just think maybe he's a bit further on. I think he is the number 1 right back.
Do you think that's the correct decision?
Yeah, it'd be a bit harsh on White because he's had a good pre-season, had a slightly iffy game at Manchester United and then loses his spot. But we'll see. I wouldn't expect major changes because the thing is, the guys that come off the bench didn't really do a great deal, did they? I would like to see Ethan Wanjeri at some stage of the game. I think he deserves it after, looking sharp in pre-season. I'd like to see Noni Madueke get a bit longer to show his worth. I don't expect major changes, do you?
No, I don't expect major changes. I certainly don't think we're going to change the centre forward, which is what people are sort of suggesting online and stuff. Will he change on the left-hand side in terms of the left winger? Martinelli was really ineffective against Man United, so there might be a temptation to throw Madueke in there. It feels like Trossard could be headed for an exit, so I would be surprised if he was to get the nod. So maybe you play Madueke, but then does that mean you have to make a change at left-back? Because you need that combination and balance to be right. So that's where I'm a little bit sort of unsure about what Mikel's going to do. On the right-back situation, I think, for me, there's plenty of minutes for Timber and White over the course of the season. I would have actually gone to Old Trafford, and I said this in the lead-up to the game, with Timber at left-back, because I think our best defensive four is White, Saliba, Gabriel and Timber. And I think there will be games this season where that's the right way to go. So I'm not too fussed about which one of them starts. Anfield away, Man City away. Those are the types of games where I'd look at it and I'd go, I want to consolidate here. Let's play Timber at left back. Still the best defender that we've got in those full-back areas.
And when I look at Victor Gyokeres, of course, you look at certain games where potentially you could get off the mark. As obviously former striker, I used to do it all the time. I'd look for the fixtures and go, I might be able to nick one there now. This is no disrespect to Leeds, but this is one game you're looking at going, I think I can get off the mark here. Yeah. And with that being said, we know Saka's going to play from the right. He will, of course, do all he can to get Gyokeres that service. When you look at Madueke and you look at Martinelli, I almost feel like if I was Gyokeres, I would prefer Madueke to start because he's left-footed for starters. He'll go past, he'll get to the byline and he'll put crosses in. Whereas with Martinelli, you never quite know if he's going to chop back and you don't quite know what you're going to get. Is that the one area you might think Mikel Arteta might look at, not just for the purposes of the team, but also to get your star striker that you've just brought in, to try and get him off the mark, to give him the best chance of scoring goals? It's
a good shout, isn't it? Yeah, because I'd like to see wingers on the side where they've got their strongest foot. They get to that byline,
it's old school,
they're confident. Yeah, no, it is a bit old school. Yeah, but as a striker, I'd imagine that's a definite positive. Yeah. I think strikers get more goals from balls flashed across the face of goal or cut back than they do from balls swung in.
Of course.
It's a more difficult skill to score from that. So, no, I would be inclined to freshen the team up a little bit, and that is the obvious change, isn't it? You go with Madueke for Martinelli, and it'd be exciting. I think it would lift the crowd. He's an entertaining player. He's the sort that will get bums off seats. A maverick, really. He's just got to sharpen up on his defensive player. It always worried me at Chelsea that he's tracking back and how committed he was out of possession. And at Old Trafford, unfortunately, they went round him 2 or 3 times very, very easily. What he has to do is earn the trust of Mikel Arteta. So he might not have done enough based on that performance to get a start. What he's got to show is actually that he can be trusted without the ball as much as he can with it.
I think the left footer thing on the left is a big point. You saw it in the Bilbao game where Gyokeres had that header that came off the post.
Yes.
The ball broke out to the left-hand side. It wasn't a pass. The ball sort of broke. And Madueke just let it run across his body and delivered it first time. And that early delivery meant that the centre-half couldn't position himself to cut out the cross. And that was what Gyokeres was after, and it really worked for him. So sometimes just taking that touch to come inside, it means that the chance has passed and the space has been closed. So I think that just would add a different dynamic to Arsenal's attack. It's getting a bit same old with our wingers cutting in all the time. I'd like to see that variation.
It's been a theme today, isn't it? It's do everything a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
You know, that's what forwards want. It's what Gyokeres wants.
Yeah.
He wants the early cross. He wants the early pass. And yeah, hopefully we'll see that at the weekend.
You said it there about samey. Do you think Mikel Arteta is looking at it and he's thinking to himself as well? Because Martinelli, again, I keep banging this drum, but I like Martinelli. But I can understand where the frustration has started to come from, because where he was 2 years ago to where he is now, I expect him to be not on Saka's level, because I think Saka's just a special talent, but I expected there to be no debate about who the right winger was and who the left winger was. It was just about that centre forward spot. Now it almost feels like we know who's on the right. We kind of know centre forward now, but the left, there's still a big question mark. I just expected it to be Martinelli, Saka, and whoever's down the middle. Do you think Mikel Arteta, although he'd never come up publicly and say it, is maybe having that same thought process in terms of, I need to change it up here?
I think it kind of shines a light on what Mikel Arteta is as a coach, in that even though Gabriel Martinelli is not contributing in the final third, he's contributing to the all-round game.
Of course.
And at times, Mikel's been accused of being a bit too pragmatic. Listen, I'm not saying that's the case, but I think this is a small microcosm of, and it shows you and it highlights to you what he prioritises. And he'll look at Martinelli and he goes, he'll track back, he'll defend, he'll press for me, he'll chase dead balls, he'll do everything in that sense. And he seems to be okay with the lack of output as long as he gets that. And I think when he had Calafiori in the team as well, he's probably even more inclined to go with Martinelli because he knows he'll cover the spaces that he leaves and he'll be more switched on than others. So I think he will get to the point where he's got to make that decision. And I think over the course of the season, you'll see Martinelli play less. But I don't think Mikel's given up on Martinelli. And as I say, that's about Mikel's vision of the game and what he thinks is important and what he prioritises, I think.
Absolutely. We know Leeds coming up, and then we go Liverpool away, Forest at home, City at home, Newcastle away. Now, that start, and obviously we just beat Manchester United, is horrible. There's no other way to hide it. It's horrible. Where do you think Arsenal are? Say no other bodies come in, no one leaves. Where are Arsenal, do you think, set as a squad to go and compete in those games? Because those are some hard games.
Well, they can compete in every game, can't they? I mean, the depth of the squad's outstanding. No one's injured yet. So long may that continue. I shouldn't really have said that, should I? But no, look. Hopefully beat Leeds at 6 points out of 6. So you got Anfield away. You obviously will take any kind of result there. But I just see it as an opportunity. You know, we saw some fragilities there with Liverpool, didn't we, in the opening night against Bournemouth? Unbelievable going forward, I've got to say. But you know, if Arsenal can get those counter-attacks right at Anfield, they could certainly hurt them. No, look, it's a tough fixture list, but I do think opportunity knocks here for us to catch some of these teams that we've struggled at in the past. Anfield's not a happy hunting ground, nor is St James's Park. We go there hopefully with almost a fully fit squad before they've really got into a groove. I think what looks a horrible fixture list could turn out to be a nice fixture list because you get the points in the bag. It sets up Arsenal for a terrific season.
And Arsenal's record against the so-called big boys has been fantastic of late. So do you think the panic when the fixture list first came out and people went, oh my goodness, we could be way off the top 6? Do you think that's a little bit silly?
Yeah, I think we always compete. Under Mikel Arteta, we always compete. We're always defensively quite sound. And so, yeah, I'm not as worried about those bigger games on paper as I would have been a few seasons ago. But I think Adrian makes a great point. Like, if you can get through those games without doing any damage, you don't even have to win them. You just don't lose them. And you're still in the mix at the end of that run, then you've done really well. And hopefully by that point, you'll be in your groove, you'll be in your rhythm. We talked about transfers and potential players coming in. And I personally would be a little bit disappointed if we don't get another attacking player in through the door. But I think what I've taken away from this show, speaking with you guys, is it's not really that much about the squad, is it? It's about doing things early, getting the right combinations, just tweaking and improving things in our own game. Because squad-wise, yeah, there might be one gap on that left flank, but we're by no means in any trouble or any weaker squad-wise than some of the teams we're competing with.
And also as well, with Arsenal's new signings, we've got to remember other clubs have made new signings, so they're still trying to find their balance. I think the only team over that opening weekend where I looked at and thought, in terms of a Premier League rival to win it, that looked like they knew exactly what they were doing, and of course, it's Manchester City. They were probably the only ones I looked at and thought, okay, they've almost clicked. Even Liverpool, as you said defensively looked a bit vulnerable. So again, it's gonna. How long do you think it's gonna take for Arsenal then we start seeing the Arsenal that we know in terms of rhythm, connections, chemistry? How long do you think?
I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know. But look, hopefully Saturday, and then you just use that as a base. This team is good enough. We know it's good enough to go and give every opponent problems. It really is. So no, look, City did look good, but they played Wolves. Wolves away were quite. It was not that difficult a game. So I don't think we should read too much into it. Look, that's a big game, isn't it? City at home. That is a huge game for us because it's one that we absolutely, hammered them last year. Can we go and do it again? That would really, I think, lay down a proper marker to the rest of the division to say that this Arsenal team is getting better. Those two home games, funnily enough, we've talked about the St James's Park and Anfield. So that it's Forest at home and City at home, games you can absolutely slip up in. Take 6 points from those. That's not an easy street, but it sets you up nicely.
So Leeds United coming up,
yeah.
Obviously on Saturday. I need a prediction from you both. I'll start with you, Adrian.
I think we can score goals in this game. They're not the quickest at the back. 3-0 Arsenal, let's go for it.
Right.
I'm not quite convinced about Arsenal defensively at the minute, so I think we're going to concede, but I think we'll score 3-1. Gyokeres brace for me.
Do you know what? I'm going to go bold with my prediction. I'm going to go 4-1 Arsenal. I'm going to go Gyokeres gets off the mark and gets 2.
We'll take it, Benty.
Yeah,
we'll take it day long.
All day.
Well, listen, thanks for joining us. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
And thanks for everyone who watched as well. Thanks to Ben Jacobs as well. Let's hope we get a positive result against Leeds at the weekend, and we'll speak to you next week.
You seem to have been running around upsetting people, Spencer, you treacherous little hound.
Boom! Like that. That's where he was getting stuck.
Opinions are opinions. They're like backsides. Everybody's got one.
I stand by that. I still think it was a terrible decision.
Well, it takes 2 to tango.
If United can get him to Saudi Arabia, they would have done it in the summer, and they'll probably drive him there themselves.
I don't think he should get to pick and choose where he wants to go. This is not a holiday destination.